To those who are joining us for the first time, welcome. And to those we have seen in the past, welcome back to Sustaining Practices for Perilous Times. I'm Rabbi Jen Queen. I'm the Director of Engagement and Reform Rabbi at Harvard Hillel and one of the Harvard Chaplains. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all and see you all today for our very last installment of the Sustaining Practices series. I've been so honored to be working with Rachel Lakin, my colleague at Memorial Church, who will introduce herself in a second. But we've been working on this series for almost a whole year now. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to both be in partnership with Rachel and my colleagues at Memorial Church and have the opportunity to introduce you to some of my favorite people on the Harvard campus. So this series over the course of the last year has featured Harvard chaplains, faculty, administrators, and other folks from our wider Harvard community offering insight into their personal spiritual practices. In this space, we define spiritual practice broadly. And spiritual practice is multimodal and has many different iterations, many different access points. So here we're talking anything from prayer and poetry to movement and mindfulness to cooking and other creative outlets, anything that inspires, cultivates meaning, provides emotional and spiritual sustenance, hope, energy, and courage to press forward during what's been a very difficult year. We've been here each Thursday from 5 to 5:30, and I am very, very excited to have two more of truly some of my favorite people from the Harvard community here to share their practices with you. And I will kick it over to Rachel to introduce our presenters.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, all. I'm Rachel. Like Jen said, I'm so excited to be here with everyone. And wow, I really can't believe it's been a whole year. Time is a strange thing. I'm so excited for today's presentations. We're ending on a note of personal prayer and a note of communal prayer. And I think the combination is going to be really beautiful. I'm excited for the next bit of our time together. Also, just a logistical note, we're going to be stopping the recording after Alana's presentation, so after the first presentation, to really be able to lean into the practice in the second half of the session today. So just a note in case that is important to any of you. So our presenters for today are Alana Sullivan, who is the Associate Minister in the Memorial Church, who will be talking about morning practices, and Donna Hakimian, the Baha'i Chaplain at Harvard, who is going to be talking about devotional and circle prayer. And I'm so excited to hear from both of them. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll pass it over now to Alana.
Thank you so much, Jen and Rachel. It's just such a delight and honor to be here. I've been hearing from both of them about sort of the magic and sparks that have been emerging from this virtual community and space. So I'm just really delighted and honored to be here. And I'm really excited to hear from Donna and some of her friends. I think truly, truly exciting. So the practice that I was hoping to share today is one that I've been doing for about 5 years now. It's a daily writing practice that has really become a source of spiritual sustenance, as Jen said, and a place for me deepening my relationship with God. And this practice is called Morning Pages. Morning Pages is a practice that was developed by Julia Cameron. You might be familiar with a book called The Artist's Way. It is her book about how it's a 12-week sort of program or guide in towards deepening your relationship with the great creator through ways to build your own capacities for creativity and sort of the stirrings within yourself. And so the one practice that I've really sort of hooked onto from that time is this Morning Pages practice. So when I was little, I don't know if any of you had this feeling of sort of aspirations of what you wanted to be when you grew up. I didn't really have, I had I definitely didn't think I'd be a minister, but here I am. But one thing I did know that I would hope to be was a good writer. I had been really moved as a child by pieces of really good writing. There are moments that I remember where my mind sort of like shifting, my perspective in the world changing by a piece of writing that made me think in new ways. It was also at times that they would make me feel less alone in the world. Someone would be able to articulate a thought that I had, and I would think, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one in the world that felt that way. But growing up, I also learned that writing was a deeply anxious experience for me. Like, I'm talking almost existential as a teenager. My palms would go really sweaty, and there'd be like this pending sense of doom in my mind, sort of classic signs of anxiety. But what I learned was that it was this fear of being evaluated. Like I had such a investment on what I wanted to say, and I wanted to say it in the right way, that I grew really attached to what I'd produce. And so through morning pages, my relationship with writing has changed and deepened and has become this actually really life-giving thing. So the practice itself is really simple. It's you wake up in the morning, first thing before you do anything else, you take a piece of paper, hopefully a piece of scrap paper, and you just write. You write without picking up your pen from the pages for 3 pages. It's just stream of consciousness writing. Preferably done longhand, although I've definitely like texted it on my phone if that's the only thing that's available. You know, you adapt. But you start writing and you just don't stop. And you don't slow down or self-edit along the way. The only requirement is that the pen just keeps moving. And the idea of this stream of consciousness is that you remain uncensored about what you are going to say, or unfettered about how you sound. And so the beautiful thing is that there's absolutely no right way to do them. In fact, fragments are fine. Anger or other extreme emotions are encouraged. Clumsiness is absolutely all right. And then the catch is that once you're done, you have to let the pages go. And the idea is that if you're writing for an audience, or if the words become a little too precious, then you start editing your emotions or you constrain your honesty. So I think I recommended before that she recommended writing on scraps of paper, Cameron. And so I often would write on the backs of envelopes that I would end up recycling later in the day. She even recommends shredding them if you might want to go back and read them. But through this practice of just stream of consciousness writing and being really honest with what's resting on my soul, I find that at the end of the 3 pages, which is generally about 15 minutes, I wake up and the world's a little bit clearer for me. Once I've sort of, the best image that I can think of is like when the wipers on your car, once you've removed the pollen and the dirt and the leaves from your windshield, you know, you can start seeing through the glass a little more easily. Or another image I've heard is about removing cobwebs from your mind. And so I really recommend this practice for anyone who might have a little fear of writing, for someone who's really interested in deepening their practice of writing. It's a very low stakes place to start. And also, if the blank page scares you, sometimes a word prompt helps. And one that I've been using and praying with for a while is called, it's actually one that I learned from my aunt who's a poet. And it's just very simply, this is what I have to say to you. And then you can be God or yourself. And then you just start writing. So I think I felt called to share this practice at this time is when the world feels chaotic. I found this practice to be a simple way to find that really like still, quiet voice inside of you. In the Psalms, there's this beautiful phrase about where the deep calls forth the deep. And I find this practice was one of those places where I can sort of feel the depth from the source that I would call God, sort of speaking to that deep place within me. So yeah, that's my practice.
Thank you so much, Alana. That was so beautiful. And I resonated so much with your description of wanting every word to be perfect and think that I'm going to try this practice. Thank you so much for that beautiful sharing. At this point, I think we'll stop the recording.